Welcome. I'm Evelyn Rudy.
And I'm Justin Walter.
And this is Santa Monica on Stage, where we talk about the people and venues that make the city of Santa Monica the cultural destination for the performing arts.
Today we're kicking off with California Lawyers for the Arts, a group that's doing great work to help artists and arts organizations to preserve and protect their rights.
It's a very important topic, as too many people forget the business side of show business. Then later on, we'll meet Isabel Story, who co-founded and runs Shine Storytelling, a group that brings together spoken word artists and celebrates emotional growth.
We'll even get a special performance from one of their storytellers, which I'm very excited about, live right here.
We've got a lot to get to, so let's get started. They work tirelessly to help artists know their rights, and we're thrilled to have them on today to find out more about the incredible services they provide. Please welcome Cambra Sklars and Jerry Bryant. It's good to have you both here.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Absolutely.
You know, so often when an actor finishes a show, an audience member will come up and say, "How did you learn all those lines?" And I would like to ask you two, as lawyers, how do you remember all those laws? It's really mind-boggling to me, but I also think it's amazing what you are doing. It is such an important thing for artists to have an organization like yours. And in true lawyerly fashion, if lawyerly is a word, you have it divided into three very distinct arenas: education, referral, and mediation and arbitration. Did I get them right?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit first about the education portion.
Absolutely. So I work on our educational programming. We plan programs both for artists and for attorneys. So for artists, there might be a painter who's showing at a gallery and wants to learn a little bit more about how consignment agreements work, or there might be a filmmaker who wants to just understand some basic principles about copyright law, and we're really there to provide that level of education for people who are working in the creative industries. And then for lawyers, we offer programs that give them continuing education credit that they are required to report every so often. And so those are there to really help keep them up to speed with what's going on in the arts and help them bring the arts into their practice.
How long are the classes and how do you sign up for them? Just kind of more of that information.
Sure. So all the registration is on our website, calawyersforthearts.org, and people can take as many or as few as they'd like.
Wow.
They sign up for individual courses. Sometimes there's multi-part ones, but we really try to make them affordable and accessible to the arts community and really anyone who wants to attend.
And of the programs, of our core programs, it's really difficult to say which ones are the most important, from education to lawyer referrals to mediation, because they're all very, very important. And as you know, as artists are very, very adept at their creations, what they do, but to actually understand the business of what they do is something completely different. Yeah. And so education is just extremely important. And so we take pride in being able to educate artists about their craft, their creations, their creativity, and that just brings special pleasure to all of us.
Yeah, how did it all get started, the organization?
Well, California Lawyers for the Arts actually started as Bay Area Lawyers for the Arts in about 1974. And then after merging with Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts Los Angeles, we became the organization that's now known in its current form as California Lawyers for the Arts.
And we are
So
very,
we've been around
very,
for a while, yeah.
very lucky to have you.
Well,
really,
thank you.
What you were saying, Jerry, about how important it is for an actor to know both sides,
Exactly.
the artist, the creative, and the business side. And that's something that so many of us tend to forget. We get so involved in creating that we forget that it is a business. And I understand, and I think this is really awesome, that both of you are also artists, not just lawyers. You both have a background in the arts, which makes it, even for you probably, you can be much, much more helpful to an artist than someone who's just an attorney, because you know it from both sides. So what?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't really consider myself an artist. I did study art history, which is really the perspective that I was coming from, and loved it. And it certainly taught me a lot about the visual arts. And I've worked in the visual arts as well. And it certainly does give you that extra perspective in terms of where people are coming from and what the needs are and what the real world out there looks like.
But it's interesting, I almost went to law school, and I didn't. But you're combining what you studied with law, whereas if I went into law, I always thought I was going to be an entertainment lawyer because I loved entertainment.
Sure.
So that, I would guess, fuels your passion for being involved with the organization.
Well, I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to really, it's a very unique organization and a very unique position that I'm in to really be able to combine the two and really keep up to speed with my contacts and people that I love in the art world as well as the legal community.
And Jerry, what about you?
Well, the organization has a special place in my heart because I was an aspiring concert pianist as a child, and I knew that that's what I was going to do as an adult. But I also knew that I wanted to understand the business of what I was doing because as a child, I knew that I also needed to understand all of that. So I went on and went to law school and did all of those things. Then later on in life, actually, I found out about California Lawyers for the Arts and its mission to empower artists and to help educate artists so that they don't basically get screwed. And even though the artists themselves may be just very, very amazing with what they do, but without that knowledge, I wanted to have that knowledge for myself. Ultimately, actually, I found out about California Lawyers for the Arts. I was invited to join the board, and I realized, oh, this is an organization that does exactly what I've always wanted to do, not only for myself, but for other artists. And so that's why I'm pleased to be a board member for longer than I care to admit, and to be able to provide the services that the organization does. And so then, and you even mentioned, as artists ourselves, we do have a sort of a special connection with those clients that we meet and that we deal with, not only because we have the knowledge that they need from a legal standpoint, but also they can relate to us and we can relate to them from a purely artistic standpoint. I just thoroughly enjoy with the musicians that I work with. We might talk about chord changes or all sorts of things, and they enjoy being able, and they find it amazing that their lawyer or someone who is a lawyer is knowledgeable about that sort of thing and can relate on that same level. So it's all very important, and it just all comes together.
And I'm sure that your clients feel particularly comfortable with you since you speak the same language that they do.
Well, that's true. It's also important to understand that the Lawyers for California Lawyers for the Arts aren't just arts and entertainment attorneys. I mean, what I do is arts and entertainment with contracts and deals and that sort of thing. But we have lawyers and we educate artists on all aspects of business. As a matter of fact, artists are just like, I like to say, just like normal people, have the same problems and issues, from landlord-tenant issues to maybe tax, real estate, whatever. So we have lawyers in our lawyer referral service in all areas of the law to be able to address whatever issues that artists and who are regular people, except for they happen to be extremely talented, whatever issue they have. And so that makes the organization unique and be able to really have a comprehensive approach to empowering the artists.
Definitely.
What are some of the most common areas you see people getting screwed in that and how they can remedy that?
Well, sure. So the way that we would see those kinds of issues come up is really through our lawyer referral service.
Okay.
We have attorneys throughout the state, several hundred of them have signed on to work with us. And then when artists call our organization seeking representation or seeking a lawyer, we do a short intake process with them and then try to match them up with one of the attorneys who work with them. So through that program, I mean, there's a whole variety of disputes that come up. Contracts, people not getting paid on contracts. There might be an artist who sold work and hasn't gotten paid for it. Collaboration agreements where parties have started a project together and they somehow find themselves in need of a lawyer to advise them about how to go forward or represent them in a dispute. So
And is that advice, do you pay for that advice, or how does that work?
Sure. So our lawyer referral service, there is an administrative fee, but that administrative fee, I think it's $35 maybe, but that fee entitles the person calling to a half-hour consultation with the attorney. And yeah, and so
A
it's
lot
really
less expensive than what you would pay at a law firm.
exactly.
I think it's very important to emphasize that California
Jeez.
Lawyers for the Arts, all of our services are dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And that's because, well, we're a nonprofit organization and we get our funding from various grants. And so the thing is, for artists, most artists, especially emerging artists, can't afford lawyers or afford the level of the education that we're able to give them. As a matter of fact, I mean, I tell people, and this is true, that I'm an attorney myself. I happen to be very, very expensive. If I had to hire myself, I couldn't afford to hire myself because I'm that expensive. And that's the way it is for most artists.
Right.
But fortunately, actually, I have to say as an aside, fortunately, everyone knows that in the entertainment business, it's not so much what you know, but who you know. And so fortunately, since I have a relationship with myself, if I needed to hire myself, I could work a deal out.
Yeah, that's good.
But the important thing, though, for California Lawyers for the Arts, our lawyer referral service gets the artist to be able to have a half-an-hour consultation with a very experienced and knowledgeable lawyer for just the cost of a small administrative fee that goes to the organization.
That is awesome. And you know what? I think you're going to be getting a lot of calls.
Pledge.
Stick around. Up next, we'll meet an artist that encourages personal growth through the art of storytelling. We'll be right back.
Riding a bicycle can seem like child's play.
But only if you're playing indoors.
Riding in the real street has real consequences.
Play it safe. Ride by the rules. Cars and bikes need to play together.
Well, in the anguish of that moment, the grit of that unrecoverable time, and those irretrievable words, what should I have said? I should have said, Betsy, you were the first girl I kissed, and it was beautiful and profound, and you'll always be a special person to me all of my life.
I come home, I make him lunch. I love him, 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 and we make out. I love you, I love you. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I love you. It's only 7 days, and I love you, and I know it makes no sense, and you're going back to England. There's no way we're going to have anything happening, but I love you, and that's all. We start making out again. I love you too, you know. No, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Finally, I suggested we take a break. You can't leave me now, he said. You're all I have. Then he went to the closet, took out a rifle, and walked outside. It was a pitch black night. And then a gunshot went off. I can still hear the echo.
I lay down on the floor, curled up, and I cried. Unlovable, I thought. Untouchable, unlovable. What man would want me now? I had ended a 17-year marriage 6 months before and was just stepping into the dating world. I would be out of the running for at least a year, or maybe forever.
Storytelling is possibly the oldest form of artistic expression, and today it's alive and well at the monthly event Shine. Each time they start with a theme, such as letting go, coming of age, and peak experiences, and then the storytellers take it from there and with an original piece of their own personal experiences. So here to tell us all about Shine is co-founder and producer Isabel Story. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me here.
So you have a background in theater and journalism. So how
Yes.
did you get started with Shine and how did you form it?
Well, I had quite an extensive background before that in journalism and television, TV journalism, reality shows, but I was always interested in true stories. So I had met up with Jen Bloom, who's a director around town, and we just had a coffee meeting and talked about, gee, you know, we'd love to work together sometime. And about a month later, she called and said, you know, I have this idea for a storytelling event, or, you know, would you like to do that with me? And I had been thinking about that for the last few years in the back of my mind, that's kind of imagining this event. And I said, that's perfect. I've been thinking about that. Let's do it. So we decided to start it.
And that's how it started, over a coffee conversation.
Exactly,
I love
exactly.
It.
So how does it work? It's monthly, and how do you pick the artists or the speakers that are going to be telling the stories?
Well, we try to outreach to all over the city to different storytellers, but we want people. First of all, there's quite a prolific storytelling scene. I was just told before we did the show that there are like now about 45 storytelling events in Los Angeles, which is just incredible. I think there's a real thirst for live stories and human connection. So we tap into that, but we also want people from all different backgrounds, like just real people, up and down the socioeconomic ladder, different ethnicities of different backgrounds. So we're doing outreach all over the place to try to get the best stories.
So each event is a theme. So you pick the
Yes.
theme, and then the storytellers, do they write their own story and then perform it, or how does it work? If I were to go to one of the events, what would I be seeing? What would it look like?
Okay. Well, we try to give some leeway there too, because some of the events around town, you have to have it all memorized, and people just get up there and perform, which really lends itself more to professional type performer people. But we wanted it also be open to people from a writing background. So people from a writing background, we tend to write something out and want to read it. Yeah. And we also wanted it to be open to just regular people without a performing background. So we say you can, be off book and perform. Some people are like that. You could be a writer who, you could take your pages up there, you can read it, you could tell it from an outline. So we let people just do it in whatever way is the most comfortable for them to tell their story.
I like
and
that.
do you vet them? Do you hear the
Yeah.
stories first, audition them, or
Yeah,
how
we
does it?
tinkered with this a little bit as far as the ratio, but we decided that where it really worked well is where we book 8 people ahead of time, and then we allow 2 spots for volunteers that night. So people do, now it has become a little more formalized over time, have to submit at least 3 weeks ahead, and they can, like I said, the variety of performers, well, that's how they can submit. They can submit an outline, they can, if they've written the whole thing out, they submit that. We look at it, first of all, we want a story that's well told, but also that fits the theme, and our unique element, is, I was just talking to you about, with our event that distinguishes it from some of the other events, that there's some kind of life lesson, something that you learned from the experience. It could be a heartbreaking, sad, or angry story. It could be a happy or funny story. We run the emotional gamut, but there's something in the story that you took away from it, that you learned something, you grew in some way. So we're looking for that element in the story as well.
It's not just getting up there and making people laugh through a story.
Right, and there'll be once in a while I'll get somebody who's really surprised that they're not picked because they have a very dramatic story, let's say. But I'll read that and I think, okay, all these dramatic things happen, but then so
What's
what?
the aha
After that,
moment?
what's the aha? Did you learn anything? Did you grow? There's nothing like that. It's just an event that happened. So that's not quite enough for our event.
And so then, Isabel, what is an aha moment?
Okay. I was thinking about that a little bit, because there's so many different ones. But there was one a storyteller who told a story that there was a girl he had a crush on, and she was a very sweet, bubbly, happy person. She was killed by a drunk driver. And this really hit him hard. And what happened is he was not only sad, but he was angry at that drunk driver, and he just kept getting angrier and angrier, and he couldn't let go of it. And he woke up angry every day, for weeks or months on end, and it was just getting worse. And then one night he had a dream about her, and she was at a party or something and looked at him and smiled, and that was his aha moment. He realized that he could let go of the anger. And I can't explain that. I don't know if he can explain what it meant, but it just meant that she said, you can move on now. You don't have to carry the burden of this anymore. There was one, actually, another one that was about a kiss that someone told. And the theme of this night was first kiss. So as you can imagine, we had all different kinds of kisses. But this was a very old-fashioned time of older gentleman who told this story. And he had taken, you know, he was like a young boy and this girl on their date. And they went to the movie, but then they ended up having the first kiss. So he didn't even watch what was happening on the screen. And this moment was so special. But then, like, nothing happened after that. 40 years later, 40 years later, because of a reunion, he talked to this woman on the phone, and he was catching up. But he was so much thinking about that first kiss that he didn't really hear what she said to him, which was, she said, oh, you know, I do this and that because it's not very far from where I walk for dialysis. And then he remembers saying, oh, good for you.
Oh, jeez.
Which, in retrospect, he felt like, oh, he put his foot in his mouth. Like, how could he have said that? Like, he was so preoccupied with his own memory that he didn't really take in what she said.
Yeah. So,
And then, but what the aha was, like a month later, he read her obit in the paper.
oh, gosh.
And he realized he had missed the opportunity to tell her what that kiss meant to him.
Oh.
So that was very sad, but what he learned from it was that when you have something like that, that you should share it with the person at the time.
Nice.
And he wished he had told her what that kiss had meant to him. But so even though it was sad, he learned something for the future.
That's beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it
what
was. It was
storytelling
very
is all
sweet.
about.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
And you have an interesting way of keeping the stories under 7 minutes, is that correct?
Yes, which can be hard because people get very involved
Yeah,
with their story.
get off.
We used the hook at first, but it didn't, you know, go over well. No, I'm just kidding. We have a bell, so at
Right.
6 minutes, the bell rings once. At 7 minutes, it rings twice. Usually that's enough, but there are some people who are so into their story, they really. So then I gradually just approach the stage.
So you get them off.
And guess what?
Well, I've had to come up, like, stand like
Ding,
right
ding.
Ding, ding,
next
where's
to
our
the
bell?
person,
Ding,
and
ding.
I've had like this one veteran storyteller. I was standing right next to him on the stage, and he kept like,
Yeah.
oh, he finally finished, but
Well, thank you,
we
Isabel.
do try to limit the time.
Thank you
yes.
so much for
Ding, ding.
joining us and giving us this information. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out Shine. And
Yeah.
when we come back, we'll be joined by Deanna Barone with an original storytelling piece.
Discover 30 years of opera in Santa Monica. Discover the Verdi Chorus.
Here to perform teases, taunts, and tissues, please welcome Deanna Barone.
First day, 8th grade. My heart is galloping. I know everybody in my 40-person class, and we all grew up together, but over the summer, I've filled out. I'm a year younger than everyone else, but I finally have my first bra. It's a 28 AAA, but it's still a bra. And then there's that thing that happened over the summer with my 5 best friends who broke up with me. You are not a follower. That's Mimi Chachko, the leader and the most developed girl in class. But I am Mimi. I am a follower. She doesn't believe me. Well, I have other friends. So, hey, Brian. He starts sneezing uncontrollably and then asks me for a tissue. But before I can give it to him, he's beyond me, hanging out, laughing with his friends. Weird. All during my classes, people are having sneezing fits. Weird. And then I open my locker, and out topples about a dozen soft packs of Puffs tissue. Very weird. My next door locker neighbor, Rachel, whispers, Mimi Chachko told everyone that you are stuffing your bra. Well, thus started days, weeks, months of constant teasing and name-calling. Hey, Stuffy, busted. And Kleenex, Kleenex, and more Kleenex. Everybody partook except for Rachel and this boy named Steven. I wanted to die. Anything would be better than living with this pain. Hurl myself down that long staircase at school and split my head open and there'd be blood and everyone would be sorry, but then they'd probably talk about my supposed falsies at my funeral. I asked Brian, why? 'Cause you care. It's just too much fun. My eyes welled up with tears. See? Fun. I cried every night, and one time I had a thought. And it was, why do I want to be friends with a bunch of bullies and mean people? I like Stephen and Rachel. They're my people. Wow, eureka! And a surprise, because it's such a simple thought that I didn't have for 3.5 months. I go back to school, do the usual, keep my eyes down, my ears closed, my shoulders rounded so no one could see my breasts, which are now a AA, still unassisted. And then I know that it's going to be unrelenting, but it isn't. Nobody makes fun of me that day, and the days following, I get invited again to parties and sleepovers. I start walking straight, looking people in the eye. God, I wish that I could bottle that epiphany and drink it as an elixir every time that I go through a hard challenge in life, right? It's a miracle. Human being from victim. But I guess a psychologist would probably really understand all of this. I know that since 8th grade, I have never been a follower. Mimi Chachko was right.
How very interesting and exciting something like California Lawyers for the Arts is. And I think it's not just for artists. They said anybody can learn and participate. And I understand you come from a family of lawyers?
I do. I come from a family of lawyers, and I almost went to law school, like I said. And I like how they're melding their passion with law and making it affordable. Even thinking about being out here in Los Angeles, the money it takes to get a lawyer.
Scary.
It's so scary, and it's daunting when you're looking at these contracts and everything, and knowing that that organization exists is it's awesome.
It is awesome.
And I loved hearing the story about Shine and then Deanna's story. It was
That's
touching.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I can completely relate to Deanna's story. For me, it was in the 7th grade.
Oh, geez.
The difference in the stories is that I was using tissue.
Well, you probably had a different aha moment.
I had a different aha moment.
Use more tissues than you had.
Oh boy!
But it's also, when you look at someone, you don't realize how stories from 8th grade, 7th grade, 2nd grade impact the rest of their lives.
Oh, it's so
and
true.
It's an event like Shine where you can go and hear different stories from different people that I love, that I'm definitely going to be going to Shine.
So am I, and I hope everybody out there does too. Yeah. That's our show for today. Every week, we're continuing our journey towards learning more about the arts groups that make Santa Monica's cultural world so rich.
We look forward to seeing you next time as we introduce you to a few more of our friends here at Santa Monica On Stage.